everyone, and welcome to my episode. I'm your host, Stella Chang, and I'm so excited to share this with you. While this podcast is technically part of a biology class project, it feels like so much more than just that, because today I get to talk about a topic that's close to my heart, art therapy. I remember around the third time I volunteered at Henry Ford Hospital with the art therapist Callie in my summer before freshman year. I was helping Callie set up the different art materials, paints, crayons, color pencils, and more. But then behind me, the door swung open. A woman walks briskly through the door. Carrying multiple things, she stood in the doorway inside and said, "I'm really glad I have this today." She takes a seat and puts all her stuff down like she was putting down some baggage weighing on her mind. Then the art therapist instructed the group to make an art piece that expresses how we viewed freedom for a 4th of July themed activity. Throughout the hour, we talked, laughed, and even sat in a not so awkward silence, talking about our weeks, all the positives and negatives, supported each other, comforted each other, and shared our stories to each other. But art therapy is still a growing field that helps people experience a sense of relaxation and healing through creative expression. I've spent countless hours observing, assisting, and experiencing the power of art therapy alongside the art therapist and cancer patients at Henry Ford Hospital. Volunteering to help cancer patients to overcome the range of complex emotions and psychological challenges after receiving a cancer diagnosis or a treatment plan. Distress is defined as a wide range of emotional struggles from sadness and anxiety to deeper issues like depression and spiritual crisis. Treating cancer or any life-altering illness with surgery, radiation therapy, and chemotherapy is very effective towards physical problems, but not so much on mental effects. Mental health includes emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It influences how we think, act, feel, and affects our ability to handle stress, make decisions, and maintain healthy relationships. And neglecting our mental health can lead to a range of issues such as anxiety, depression, and burnout, especially in life-changing scenarios. The psychological distress associated with receiving a cancer diagnosis decreases the quality of the patient's life. The goals of cancer treatment are to prevent recurrence, achieving a cure, elongating lifespan, and relieving symptoms. The intense stress that comes from curing cancer physically affects the patient's mental health greatly. Strengthening a patient's ability to cope with their diagnosis and improve their emotional and psychological well-being is very important. Art therapy is a mental health service that employs that creative process of art making to improve and enhance the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of individuals of all ages and a variety of diagnoses like chronic illness, physical disability, mental illness, and cancer. It's based on the belief that creative processes involved with artistic expression helps patients resolve emotional conflict, develop interpersonal skills, manage behavior, reduce stress, increase self-esteem, enhance self-awareness, and achieve personal insight. Art therapy is one of the recommended therapies that is proven to reduce anxiety and stress for cancer patients who are struggling with their mental health, but it's often overlooked than other therapies. At first, I didn't get it. I was stressed out about using new art supplies, like the ones I'm not very confident with, like color pencils or paints, and I was just mainly worried about making something good. But Callie, the art therapist, reminded me that it wasn't about making impressive art, but the process. The real benefits come from engaging your brain in activity. And for the last 3 years, Callie and I collected mood ratings from 64 cancer patients who participated before and after the art therapy sessions. On average, people reported a mood of 6.844 before the session and then 8.453 after. This meaningful increase proved that art therapy changed how people feel, but I wanted to understand what was happening neurologically. Creative arts have been known to help people express emotions and reduce stress, but unfortunately, the exact neuroscience behind this hasn't been fully understood until recently. More studies now show that art making activates key brain areas involved in emotion, reward, and self-awareness. awareness. Your brain's reward pathways become active during art-making activities like doodling, and this was proved by an experiment using an FNIRS, also known as functional near-infrared spectroscopy, to measure the blood flow in the areas of the brain related to rewards. While study participants complete a variety of art-making projects. In a study written by Frank Otto of a research experiment at Drexel University, 26 participants wore FNIRS headbands while they completed 3 different art activities. For 3 minutes, the participants colored in a mandala, doodled within a circle, and had a free drawing session. The results showed a consistent increase in blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, especially in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, also known as the DLPFC, and the orbitofrontal cortex, also known as the OFC. These areas are crucial for decision-making, emotional regulation, attention, and social reasoning. This heightened activity suggested that making art stimulates the brain's reward pathway, likely releasing dopamine and creating a sense of satisfaction. A specific signaling pathway that I researched explains how art making can lead to mental health improvements, but it always starts with a stimulus. When someone begins creating art, whether it's drawing, painting, or sculpting, the sensory systems in the brain are the first to respond to the stimulus. Visual input, such as the colors and shapes of art materials, is processed in the primary visual cortex at the back of the brain in the occipital lobe. At the same time, the somatosensory cortex in the parietal lobe interprets tactile sensations from handling materials like brushes, clay, or pencils, while the motor cortex controls hand and finger movements involved in creating. These sensory and motor signals are then passed to higher order brain regions that integrate body awareness with emotional and social meaning. This sensory engagement creates a kind of bottom-up attention, pulling the brain's focus toward the present experience. As the creative process continues, emotional systems in the brain become involved. This begins with limbic system, a group of evolutionarily older brain structures located deep within the cerebral hemispheres. This system includes key regions such as the amygdala, hippocampus, hypothalamus, and parts of the cingulate cortex. When a person engages in creative activity, the amygdala becomes active as it scans the content for emotional meaning. It's particularly sensitive to strong feelings like sadness, fear, or hope, and plays a major role in the body's stress response. Simultaneously, the hippocampus contributes by linking these emotions to stored personal memories, making the experience feel personally meaningful. The emotional stimulation can also trigger activity in the hypothalamus, which communicates with the autonomic nervous system, sometimes causing physical symptoms like psychological changes. Once the emotional signal is detected and processed by the limbic system, it is relayed forward to the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, aka VMPFC, a crucial bridge between emotion and cognition. From here, the prefrontal cortex, especially regions like the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex and the anterior cingulate cortex, come aligned to interpret, regulate, and make meaning of the emotional experience. The DLPFC is involved in cognitive control, like deciding how to respond, maintaining intention, and reappraising emotionally charged thoughts in a more adaptive way. For instance, in art therapy, when someone externalizes an internal feeling onto paper, the ACC helps detect emotional conflict or distress and shifts attention towards resolution or insight. Meanwhile, the orbitofrontal cortex integrates emotional meaning with social context, allowing the person to reflect on relationships or personal challenges depicted in the art. This transition from raw emotion processing in the limbic system to conscious interpretation and regulation in the PFC is what enables deeper emotional understanding, reframing of negative thoughts, and ultimately the development of psychological resilience. In essence, art acts as a bridge between the emotional brain and the thinking brain, allowing people to confront, process, and reframe their feelings and create a safe, creative space. As the artwork takes shape and the person experiences small achievements like completing a section or making an aesthetically pleasing decision, the brain's reward system becomes active. Catherine Wright describes the ventral striatum and nucleus accumbens becomes active and starts to release dopamine, a neurotransmitter that produces feelings of pleasure and motivation. This dopaminergic activation encourages continued engagement and can combat symptoms of depression like low energy or lack of enjoyment. As emotional expression deepens, another network is triggered called the default mode network, also known as the DMN. But what's even more fascinating is how art therapy taps into the DMN, which is a powerful brain network involved in a self-reflection, memory, imagination, and emotional meaning. Described by Nava Rubin, the DMN includes regions like the medial prefrontal cortex, associated with personal identity and self-evaluation, posterior cingulate cortex, which supports autobiographical memory and emotional processing, hippocampus, which encodes context and personal experience, and the temporopartial junction, which helps us understand others' emotions and perspectives. Normally, the DMN deactivates when we focus on external tasks, but in another fMRI study on visual art, when participants viewed unfamiliar artworks that they found personally moving, the DMN, especially the MPFC, remain highly active. This is unusual because it suggests that certain visual experiences can feel so meaningful that they bypass the brain's normal task response system and directly trigger self-referential thought, as if the viewer sees part of themselves reflected in the artwork. And what makes this even more remarkable is that the DMN and the task-positive networks like those used in focused problem solving are usually anti-correlated, meaning when one is active, the other is off. But in intense art making, both networks co-activate. This rare crossover helps a person be mentally present while also tapping into deep internal emotional states. It's this unique brain state, a balance between outer focus and inner meaning, which is likely why art therapy is so effective. Even for people dealing with trauma, anxiety, depression, or chronic illness, though the field is still emerging and under-researched, the neuroscience of art therapy is revealing just how powerful creativity can be, and not just for expression, but for actual healing in the brain. In the end, this entire pathway, starting from sensory and emotional engagement to reward and self-reflection, helps reduce stress, improve mood, enhance emotional regulation, and support long-term mental health. It lowers stress hormones like cortisol, increases dopamine for motivation and pleasure, and helps build stronger neural connections for resilience, self-awareness, and emotional healing. This is the core of why art making can be a powerful therapeutic tool, even for people who don't consider themselves as, artists. At the end of that 4th of July art therapy session, we had to share our art pieces. The woman from before stood up with a big smile on her face and started to explain her art piece. It was full of color and expression, and she told us that when she was younger, she didn't get much opportunity to practice art. She didn't really explain why, but she told us now coming to art therapy is like her freedom to draw, and it feels like an uplifting feeling to be here and experiencing that freeing feeling with us. That is what made me love art therapy so much. The people, the community, and the feeling of relief you get afterwards. I hope the practice of art therapy is used much more in medical environments because it's such an overlooked way of helping patients feel understood, empowered, and emotionally supported. From volunteering with the art therapist to just researching more deeply about it, Growing my understanding made me more passionate about art therapy. Observing the effects on people's moods or just chatting with a cancer patient while coloring something I drew is something I love, and I wouldn't trade these experiences for anything. Thank you for listening.